Chapter 10, May 22nd, 1862. The Richmond Road had numerous twists and branches, and Bridget began to fear she'd lost her way. Suddenly, a voice barked, "Halt!" A sentry in Confederate gray stepped from the bushes and came toward her suspiciously, but as he drew near, his frown softened. What he saw was a harmless middle-aged woman, her clothes bedraggled, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. The woman explained that she had come to sell her goods in camp, but now she had another purpose. "I must find a staff officer named McKee," she said. "I have a message for him from a dying soldier." Minutes later, Miss O'Shea was bouncing along in a supply wagon pulled by an old mule. The driver helped her down outside General Ewell's headquarters, where a sympathetic aide listened to her story. "I'm to give this gold watch to Major McKee," she explained. "It was the boy's last request." The aide shook his head. The major was out with a surveying party and wouldn't be back until afternoon. "Meanwhile," he said, "make yourself comfortable, ma'am. You're welcome to the hospitality of our camp, such as it is." He led her to a tent where some black women were hard at work cooking and washing, and beckoned to one. "Take care of this lady, Rachel," he said. "See that she's comfortable and has something to eat." Alone with the women, Bridget sat down on an empty crate and watched. They were a lively bunch, smiling and chattering, and now and then they would steal curious glances in her direction. One of them brought her 2 thick slices of bread made of rice and cornmeal and a mug of sweet cider. She learned that they were contraband slaves, slaves who had wandered from their farms and plantations in the confusion of war. Some contrabands made their way north. Others, like this group, had been rounded up and put to work for the Confederate Army. These women did the cooking and laundering for the staff at the rebel headquarters. Like many Southern house servants, they were treated far better than the field laborers and trench diggers Cuff had met before. Wolfing her food, Bridget studied the slaves' clothing. Bandanas tied neatly around their heads, aprons hitched around long, ragged skirts. Making a mental note of it. It would be a useful disguise for a future mission. Listening to the gossip, she also learned about the units stationed there, the number of troops, and the names of their officers. This time she had decided to keep information in her head instead of writing it down. It would be much safer, and would be good training for her. At first the women were a bit shy as Bridget sat with them, but gradually they relaxed. Someone started to sing, and one by one the others joined in. "We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Soldiers of the cross." Bridget knew the hymn well. Softly she joined them in the final chorus. "We are climbing higher, higher. We are climbing higher, higher. We are climbing higher, higher. Soldiers of the cross." She sat a while longer, thinking of a deserted house and a dying man. Then, thanking the black women, she picked up her basket and stepped out to explore the area. To her relief, she found she could move around with complete freedom. Nobody was suspicious of a poor woman trying to peddle her basket of meager goods. In fact, she sold quite a few packets of thread and pieces of soap to the friendly troopers. She also kept her eyes and ears open, talking to the soldiers, counting the various cannons, noting the layout of the defenses. All this was stored in her head. She'd have much to report when she got back to camp. If she got back to camp. There were no exact plans for her return, but she tried not to worry about that. 3 o'clock came, and with it Major McKee. Bridget met him, turned over the gold watch, and described what had happened. The major was saddened. He shook his head and chewed the end of his droopy mustache. "Poor Allen Hale, rest his soul," he mused. "We wondered what became of the lad. At least he didn't fall into enemy hands." The major excused himself with a bow, hurried into the headquarters tent, and returned a minute later. "Ma'am," he asked, "can you ride?" Bridget nodded. "Been ridin' since I was a shaver, sir. Had my own farm pony back in Country Clare." McKee chewed his mustache again. "Then we'd much appreciate it if you'll grant a favor. We are right anxious to bring Lieutenant Hall's body in and give it a decent burial. If it's not imposing, you think you could guide a squad out to that old house?" The spy's heart leapt at the prospect and possibilities opening up for her. She smiled sweetly. "I'd be right proud to take them, Major." A fine-looking chestnut horse was led from the corral. A trooper made a step with his linked hands, and she climbed into the saddle. She usually sat her horses astride, the way men did, but just in time she remembered to sit side saddle, legs together, in a ladylike manner. A sergeant rode up beside her and touched his cap. Behind him came the mule wagon, carrying 4 soldiers and a wooden coffin. McKee gave the sergeant last-minute instructions. "We have reports of Union patrols this side of the river. Move with care, Parker, and look after this brave lady." The party started off at last, with Bridget and the sergeant in front and the wagon following. At first she worried about finding the right way back, but soon began to recognize landmarks. As they rode along, she did some more probing. "You think the Yankees will attack soon?" she asked her companion. Parker spat tobacco juice and grinned. "I believe so, ma'am. They'll head this way soon as they've finished building their bridge. But we'll be ready for 'em." He swept a hand toward the dense foliage on both sides of the river. "We're hiding lots of heavy guns here in the woods. When the Yanks come down this road, they'll march straight into an ambush. Purely won't know what hit 'em." Miss O'Shea tried to look pleased, but she filed the alarming news in her head. It was something headquarters would certainly be glad to learn. The rescue party took a wrong turn and had to backtrack, but they finally reached the old house. A soldier hopped from the wagon, looked inside, and reported that the body was still there, under its blanket. As the men began unloading the coffin, Sergeant Parker turned to his guide. "I'd be much obliged, ma'am, if you could ride up to the next bend and kind of act as lookout. Watch for stray Yanks. If I sent one of my men, they'd shoot 'em for sure. But they'll never bother you." Bridget's eyes lit up. "Don't you fret, Sergeant. I'll keep watch. When you're ready, just start back without me, and I'll catch up." Marveling once more at her good luck, the young spy trotted half a mile down the road and slid around the bend. Once out of sight, she swung her right leg over the pommel of the saddle, then kicked the horse into a fast canter. Horse and rider raced down the road as she put distance between herself and the rebels. After several miles, she noticed that the swamp had narrowed greatly. She could even glimpse the Chickahominy through the trees. She wheeled the chestnut sharply, plunged through the underbrush, then straight into the river. The little horse was a sturdy swimmer, strong and confident. Nearing the Union side, she tore off her bonnet and waved it to attract the picket's attention. In a short while, Bridget O'Shea was back at headquarters, sitting across from Colonel Shrub, telling him what she'd learned. The adjutant was delighted with her report. He also admired the chestnut horse she had ridden to safety. "He's all yours, Thompson," he said. "Add him to your collection of trophies." Later, while changing clothes at the cabin, Emma brought Mrs. Butler up to date. Then she remembered something. "Oh, Lord!" she wailed. "I plumb forgot your lovely wicker basket. It's back at the rebel camp." Chaplain's wife laughed. "No matter. If you ask me, a basket for a horse is a good trade." The women went out to look at the little chestnut tethered near the cabin, cropping grass. "He's a handsome animal, Em," said Mrs. Butler. "What are you going to name him?" Emma grinned. "Rebel," she said.